right, welcome back. Let's take a look at adding more to our cinematics. So right now we have a cinematic where we've been able to add movement, whether that's movement of an object in the world or movement of the camera. We've been able to implement movement in our sequencer. We've also been able to play animations. And we've been able to make sure that those movements and animations and changes stick around after our cinematic is over. Let's look at some other things that we can add to our cinematic. I'm going to take a look at my cinematic actor. Here's my cinematic just like before. Right now, we're able to go through and look at all the different elements. So I'm going to open up my second cinematic. We have a shot here where Narbash, let me select this and make sure that we lock to it so we can see it, where he plays the drums and then the rock moves. So what I'm going to do is just before the rock moves, I'm going to find a keyframe just before it starts moving. And I'm going to add another track to my sequence. So the track I'm going to add here is going to be an audio track. Here's my audio track, so I can add audio sounds. I can add any of the sounds that are currently in my project. Right now, I don't have any cool drum ones, so I'm going to come in here. One of the ones I'm going to add, though, is I'm going to add this collapse 02 for when the rock starts moving. And so now when we play, it should play that sound. I'm also going to add in to match my animation. So I'll open up my animation track. Here's my drum solo. On my audio, I'm going to move to where my drum solo begins. So unfortunately, even though we have a lot of Narbash emotes, we don't have his drums being played. So I'm just going to go ahead and add another sound here that's just kind of at random from his list. So if I go to my audio track, we can add audio, and I'm just going to do Narbash effort ability. Let's do E13. And so we'll find again that you can just play these audio tracks whenever we need them to play. And they'll become part of our cutscene. Excellent. So with our cutscene, we were able to add audio. The next thing we may want to add is we may want to go to where that rock moves around. And in addition to the sound effects, we may want to play a screen shake. Now the screen shake is going to work the same way as we did them before. So we're going to go to our content browser. I'm in my blueprints. I'm going to create a new blueprint, right? So when I go to blueprint class, we're going to inherit from. So we go to all classes. And this is going to be default camera shake base. Rock camera shake. And when I open it, we're going to have all of our data about our camera shake pattern. Once again, Perlin noise. I'm going to change the camera, move it side to side. So I'm going to make it happen quite often, right? So under my timing, I'm going to change my duration to -1. A negative duration means that it's just going to play the screen shake for as long as we put it in the timeline. So now we're going to be able to control it in the timeline. I'm going to change my frequency multiplier. Instead of it just being at 1, it's going to be a lot of frequency, a lot of rotation. Let's change a little bit of our amplitude here. So we will set all of these to 2s. I guess I could have just done my overall multiplier to 2 and then just left them at 1, but I'll do that here on my rotation as well. Again, this is something you're going to have to experiment with, find the right values that work best for you, but I'm just setting some that I'm pretty sure are going to be visible as I run them. All right, now that I've created that data file that holds the information about our screen shake, it's going to be part of our camera. So under my Cinecamera actor, I'm going to add a track, and we're looking to add a camera shake track. This will bring up our list of assets, and we can choose from any camera shake that we may have created. So if you've created more than one, you'll have more than one in here. Here's the one I created for rock camera shake. And when I select that, now we're going to see that screen shake as part of our setup, right? So I'm going to have that run until the point that we start blending back. So I'm going to screen shake for a small amount of time. Let me select this here. We'll select that screen shake. I'm going to go to the end. And at this point, I can edit and I can trim section right to cut everything off the right side. So now my camera shake is only for that small amount of time. I'm actually going to do it when he starts beating the drums, right? So he pulls back. There's where his first drum hits. I'm going to stretch my camera shake there. All right. So it's going to go while he's playing the drums. And then my rock's going to move and it'll stop by the time he's done. Excellent. So here we go. We can see we move from our character. Watch him move up. And we're adding to our cutscene as we go. All right, the next thing we're going to add to the cutscene is we're going to take a look at adding particles. So if I wanted a little particle system to occur while he's playing those drums, I'm going to once again go into my cinematic. I'm going to find the point where I want those particles to occur. It's probably going to line up right with my screen shake, so I'm going to find that general area. And I'm going to need to add a particle system to the world, and I can turn it on and off in my cinematic. So I'm going to unconnect my camera cuts so that I can see what's going on here. I can see there's where he's at in that cinematic from my other camera point of view. So let me go ahead and go back to my content browser. We will go down to our starter content. I'm going to go to my particles. You know what? I'm going to grab these sparks, bring them out into the world, and I'll just put them at a location I feel is kind of interesting. It's not going to make much sense, but I will put them in there. So they're going to start happening. With those sparks selected, I can go over to my particles in the setup and we can make sure that they don't start at the beginning. So I'm going to search here for my auto activate and I'm going to turn it off. So by default, my sparks are in the world and they're sitting at that location, but they are not active. I'm going to go into my sequencer. I'm going to add a new track, add actor to sequencer, and I'm going to add those sparks. Now I have a line for the sparks inside of that setup. And because I don't need the sparks all of the time, right, I'm going to right click on them and I'm going to convert them to spawnable. Now that they're spawnable, we can see that these sparks, spawned object owner is this sequence. So they'll only be created when the sequence runs and they'll be destroyed when the sequence ends. To activate them, here's my sparks. Here's where it says, are they spawned or not? So I move to where I want my sparks to start. So I'm going to do that as he gets ready to swing. I'm going to add a new track. And that track that I'm going to add is going to be my FX System toggle track. This just allows me to activate or deactivate them. So come into this spot. I'm going to keyframe and activate. I'm going to move to when I want them off. So I'll say about here. And I will switch to deactivate and I will keyframe deactivating them. And so now they're only active during that middle part. They should not exist when they're not in that part. So when I'm before, it should be deactivate. And then they activate. And then they deactivate again. Once again, give these all a test. I can do my file, save all. I can press play. I can move into my trigger and we can watch our cutscene occur. So now we're giving it the test. And we'll notice that those sparks are gone. They're not in the level anymore when we're outside of that cutscene. So they're entirely going to be a part of that cutscene. They only belong to that sequence because we made them spawnable. So you can do this with anything. If I wanted to, I could make the character, I could make Narbash spawnable, and then he'll go away when the scene is over. That will allow it to have him not standing there when I come back to play later on. So that's how we're setting up our cutscenes. That's the majority of the tools that we're going to use. There will be a tutorial set inside of the shell that does sequencer in Unreal 4. All of those tools still apply. They're just going to be located in a different area. You may have to search for them in order to find them. The last piece that we're going to look at is we're going to look at adding an event. So we're going to be able to do any of our Blueprint coding. Anything that we did in Blueprint, we're going to be able to call that event while our sequencer is playing. There is one downside. If our sequence happens to end early, those events won't automatically be played. Those events will only be played if they reach that frame in the sequence. Also, if we were to somehow use code to jump around in our sequence, we wouldn't play those events. However, those events can be played if we just play our sequence from beginning to end. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add a new blueprint. And we're going to add a blueprint that's just going to have a single event. And that event is going to do something simple. Maybe I'll play a sound, even though we know how to play sounds. I'm going to play a sound because it's something we could easily recognize as happening. So once again, I'm going to create a new blueprint actor. So I'm going to go through and I'm just going to go ahead and go back to my content browser. I'm going to go to my blueprints and we're just going to make a new blueprint class. It's just going to be a child of actor. So it's just a blueprint actor. And I'm just going to call this like sound test for sequencer. I'm going to open that up. And under my event graph, we're just going to have one custom event. So I'm going to get rid of all of these. I'm going to right click and I'm going to create my custom event. And my custom event is going to be just like play sound as test. We're going to play sound 2D. And I'm going to choose my sound asset to play this time. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to play a sound cue that we may recognize. So I'm going to go down to his emotes. And I'm going to let him play his taunt emote. So there we go. There's a sound emote for him to play. And whenever this event runs, this object's going to play this sound. It's simple. It's just a test. Realize that you can do anything that we've done in Blueprint so far. Open doors, activate physics, anything that we've done inside of Blueprint so far, you can do inside of these events. So before I do anything, I'm going to make sure I have one of these objects in my world. So I'm going to bring it in. It doesn't really matter where I place it because I'm using the sound 2D, but I'm going to go ahead and place it close to him so that we can see it. And then I'm going to go to my sequence and I'm going to find the point where I want to activate that event. And I'm going to add a track, actor to sequencer, and I'm going to find that new object. Here's my sound test for sequencer. It gets its own section of tracks. And within that section, I'm going to add an event track. My event track can be one of two types. It can be a trigger that happens once or a repeater that happens multiple times. I'm going to fire a trigger. This gives me an event track for this specific object. I'm going to add a keyframe where I want that event to fire. So now we'll see this trigger that's in here. If I select it, I'm going to be able to right click on it, go to properties, and it will let me bind an event to this keyframe. That means that this event is going to run when that keyframe is clicked. Now, there's an option for quick bind. Quick bind is going to allow me to very quickly add what I need to do. We could also do it manually by creating a new endpoint, creating a new event. But I'm going to create a quick bind. We're going to go down to our type, which is sound test for sequencers, right? In here, under my class type, sound test for sequencer, there's my event that I created, play sound as test. If I click on that, it will bring us to a blueprint that says this is the event that is running at that moment, and it's going to call this event on my object. So I can save, compile. If I exit back out, now whenever I reach this point in my timeline, it's going to call that event. So if I play my game, we walk into that space.
Your head looks like a drum. Let's play.
Right? And so it played that sound file when he reached that point. Excellent. So now we know how to add events. So we can do a lot of things with sequence now. We can move things, rotate them, scale them. We can move our cameras. We can change the focus of our camera or any of our camera settings. We can play animations on any object that has an animation built into it. We can play sounds when we need sounds to play. We can do a camera shake, and we can access different events from our blueprints. So what you're going to do with the remainder of your time for this module is start playing with Sequencer. Take a look at the different things we can do, start building some fun sequences, see if you can create a bunch of interesting cutscenes. The more you practice, the better you're going to be. You can't just use Sequencer once and expect to know how it works. You definitely can't just watch a video on Sequencer and think you automatically know how to use it. You're going to need to do this over and over and over again. So make lots and lots of sequences, use lots of different actors. Right now, we're just controlling one actor. Think of what it would be like if you had to control 5, 6 different actors moving around. Create camera cuts where you zoom in on their face for them to play their dialogue or do their movements. Think about all of the different ways that you can create interesting cutscenes and cinematics. That's going to be a huge part of building interactive and engaging levels inside of Unreal. Once you've made a couple dozen different cinematics, you'll be ready to build the one that you're going to turn in for your assignment. I look forward to seeing what you can build with the tools that we have set up that are a little more interesting than my simple little cinematic.